So a big welcome to all our webinar attendees, listeners and delegates and panelists. I'm going to do introductions in just a moment, but welcome to our Travel Tech Tech Talk webinars. The webinar today, our first webinar in a series of 7 webinars looking at different technology subjects in travel and tourism and arts and culture, is adapting to the Traveller 2.0. We're taking a deep dive into companion technologies. So what it's all about really is that as the travel industry evolves, so does the traveller. The concept of Traveller 2.0 is recognizing what is the post-pandemic era of, I guess, recently tech-savvy individuals. They are of all ages, we believe, who rely increasingly heavily on companion technologies for in-destination experiences. So today we're going to explore usage trends. We're going to be looking at much more than that. We're going to be looking at opportunities, challenges, the impact of mobile apps, and successful integrations as well as looking at how the future might develop. So we've got some great panelists, some industry titans, as we said earlier. I'd like to introduce Alexi Tabrisi, who's Executive Vice President Global Sales at Big Bus, who has over a decade of experience in travel and tourism and much more other experience as well. And Alexi has played a pivotal role in driving the international expansion and success of Big Bus. She's a visionary leader and a strategic executioner, if you like, making her a driving force in the industry. Stephen Otto, I'm sure you know as well, is co-founder of Walks and Devour and is with Hornblower Group. His entrepreneurial spirit and digital expertise on strategy has propelled Walks into a global brand offering guided tours in 30 cities worldwide. He's got an innovative approach, has embraced virtual tours, has garnered significant acclaim, and has strengthened the company's growth right across the world. And Claudio Bellanzona, who is actually CCO at Vox Group, but a co-founder of Musement and an advisor at TUI. He has over 2 decades of experience in building digital products, so he's really right for this as well, and in launching innovative ventures. So he's got a lot of industry knowledge, and he's going to be a vital member of the panel as well. So that's where we're at. Where we want to start, actually, I think, is defining companion technology. You know, how should we define this? So what I'm going to do is throw that over to Claudio and ask him to jump in and perhaps give us his view of what companion technology is all about.
Sure. Thank you, John, and thanks everyone for having me. Well, I would say that companion technology, companion apps, in most of the cases, at least in travel, are everything that is mobile-based, smartphone-based, in terms of tools that are trying to offer tailor services to users. This is obviously in terms of abilities, preferences, needs, whatsoever. So basically, when we're talking about companion technology in travel, we're talking about applications that are useful or should be useful when travelers explore a destination, a venue. Obviously, this is very important for everything that concerns travel experiences. And as they evolve, now with more and more news coming because of AI technology, these applications are becoming, I would say, more capable of assisting in terms of personalizing offers, giving customized functionalities, and somehow I would say, and this is at least to me one of the biggest topic, reshaping how travelers are experiencing a place or experiencing a destination within the full customer journey. So when we're talking about this, we're talking about how travelers are becoming more and more reliant on those type of technologies to enhance somehow their travel experiences, their travel customer journey. This is how I would basically define it.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain characteristics in companion technologies, I suppose, Claudio, like competence, individuality, uh, probably adaptability, trustworthiness
I would
too,
say,
potentially.
yeah, I would
Yeah.
say to me is all about what I could define as con- context sensitivity.
Mm.
We're talking about something that should make sure that whatever you are doing with this type of technology, the information that comes back should be somehow contextualized and sensitive to your needs. This is again it's becoming more and more true, I think, with AI, which is by definition something that we are experiencing as also users ourselves as conversational technology, right? So it's something that
Mm.
interacts and should provide you with context capabilities every time you ask something or every time you interact with a machine.
Right. So if we broaden this now a little bit into the device usage, I mean, who is using the devices? Alexei, I mean, you're actively using companion technology, and have you seen any perhaps age group segmentation? I mean, what's your experience here in device usage?
Yeah, well, first, thanks, John, for that very generous introduction. I'm really happy to be here. Well, firstly, to start with our demographics, just to give you an idea, we're a hop on, hop off bus company, and I think much of the industry maybe makes the assumption we don't appeal to the younger audiences, Gen Z and millennial. So firstly, I just want to say, share a little bit about our demographic split, which is actually just below 40% when it comes to Gen Z and millennial combined of our customer base. Um, so that being said, our app usage has just accelerated over the last few years since COVID in particular. I think over 1 million app downloads per year is what we're seeing. And of course, it started and we continue to improve upon, features that enhance the customer experience around utilizing the product, live bus tracking and so forth. And from there, we're incorporating, different AI technology to enhance the customer experience, looking at live audio guides and so forth. But we do see that download metric kind of spread evenly across the demographics. I think the older generations are just as tech savvy or wanting to utilize the new technology as the younger crowds.
Right, and that's part of this Traveller 2.0, I guess, isn't it? You know, the change that the pandemic made for older people in terms of being familiar with technology. So, yeah, the old idea that baby boomers are only analog can now be they can claim some digital savviness, I guess, too. Um, uh, can we? Is there any need to change the way that apps are built for the user experience to suit older travellers, or do you think, Stephen? I mean, maybe that's something you can throw in. Do you feel that apps work across generations, or they do need tailoring for specific um,
In my
demographics?
experience, nowadays the commonly built apps are already factoring this in. I mean, if you look at the most popular apps out there, they're being used heavily across generations nowadays. It may have been, a learning curve that took a while for, let's say, over 50 to adopt some of the mobile technologies, but more and more you're seeing this widely adopted now. There's so many different adaptations for accessibility and for vision and audio. And so I think it's become part of the standard of developing apps. There's also just a lot better cross-platform technologies now to do that than there were 10 years ago. Web apps have become more common. QR code usage has become much more standard, and I think most people now know not only how to use them, but it's built into most versions of the last, let's say, 5 years of smartphones to make it very easy to interact with QR codes. So I think this has all helped enable adoption, and I'm sure a business like ours and Alexi's that has people that are doing check-ins can actually help that process along. So it's not that they're just kind of fuddling around trying to figure out how to get into the app, but they have someone there, and I think that's key for businesses like ours who are trying to bridge that from maybe somebody who didn't download the app or interact with a piece of the technology beforehand to do that on the ground.
Right. Okay, so what about the connectivity side of things? There are several enablers here. One of them we've discussed, which is the tech savviness of travelers today compared to 2019 or earlier. Um, but also 5G has been a very big influence in all of this speed of download capability and the broadness of the bandwidth and that sort of thing. Do you think that, Stephen, I'll stick with you for a second because you have a Walks product, obviously, and people are out there in the street. Do you find that connectivity can be an issue still today on app technology, or what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It depends on the context and what you're trying to accomplish. But, in my view, in the last 10, 15 years, as it went from does everyone have a smartphone to does everyone have data? I think nowadays, even that question is mostly mitigated. I would say, 7 out of 10 customers, not only, 10 out of 10 have smartphones, but 7 out of 10 likely have data. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of international guests. So people from America, even 5 years ago, may not have had as much data roaming, but more and more people are coming with it. So to that point, though, if you don't have 100% coverage and your tour or experience needs data at some point to enable something, then you need to have something in the field to do that. And it is more complicated on a tour, particularly if a tour goes inside of an attraction. We have tours going deep into catacombs, and we've had testing of different audio enabled live guide streaming technologies, for example. And that's where these things get challenging. You have a group of 20 or 25 people trying to go kind of spread out through a catacomb, even if you have a wireless router that's pretty powerful, it starts to fall apart in there. Or in places like the majorly crowded museums, the Vatican or the Louvre, these are challenging, even if you bring wireless technology. And a lot of the attractions, unfortunately, don't really have great wireless to
Right.
jump onto that you can utilize. I'm sure you at Box know this. It's a challenge to expect that to work for you. So you probably have to bring your own if you really want it to work consistently.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Connectivity, of course, is not just the speed of the connection with the phone and the service. Claudio, also connectivity is what the app is connected to in terms of providing product, isn't it? For example, the days of paper vouchers are they're fading, aren't they, in terms of acceptability in the digital age? How do you see apps? I know, for example, city passes, that sort of thing. Is that an area where connectivity is getting better now with links to venues and experiences and so on through the technology, so it's live in the customer's hands?
I think it is indeed. Obviously, as Stephen was saying, we do have an increasing usage of data. We see it all the time. Which is definitely helping and supporting. On the other hand, we do have a much better connectivity between the different stakeholders that are involved in the value chain. So we are seeing a definitely much more than before ways of connecting everything that needs to be experienced by the final user. So speaking about venues, do have finally a situation that it's getting much better than before in terms of the capabilities of having APIs connecting directly whatever ticket is issued by the venue directly to the smartphone. We do have most of all the OTAs in the market pushing a lot for having their own app downloaded by the customer to find everything within the app. So we do see this much easier than before. Although I think there are also some more, let's say, general considerations to be made about how users' behavior is then different from what we sometimes think. So the real big difficult is understanding where um, where you have a gap between the type of product you are essentially delivering and real consumption, between what we do as operators or as technology providers and what travelers really want. So, and this is very true in the world of experiences. So I think we all see, I guess, especially Alexi and Stephen can confirm, but we are seeing an increasingly evident demand for authenticity, human connection, things like that. But on the other end, there is also the need to support this experience with a greater engagement, with more service, with the connectivity you are talking about. And so the real big question is how to make sure that this is then useful to the final customer. I have seen myself plenty of solutions that were implemented in the past that didn't necessarily work, or solutions that were actually seen as the core of the experience when not necessarily are at the end. So again, for everyone in the industry, I believe that this is the real question. So we see that it's getting easier. We see that technology is definitely helping us out. We see that there are certain type of trends, and trends are obviously changing every single day, every single year, at least, in terms of users' behavior. And now the big question is, how do we make sure that we constantly keep up with that? How can we constantly leverage technology and leverage users' behaviors in order to make it useful for the final customer?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So, Alexi, from a logistical point of view and addressing concerns such, I mean, do customers have privacy concerns, for example, and the logistics of putting the app into place? Is that something that was initially tough for you guys, or what's your experience on that side?
Yeah, I think we definitely benefited from the overall trend of people moving more towards app and companion technology, but we also have a huge advantage as our particular operation of having so many in-market touch points. So we obviously encourage our customers to download our app after they make a booking on our website. It's a little bit more challenging through our B2B channels, but we also reach them that way. But then, of course, when they're in market, to Stephen's point, where we have staff um, and assets in market that we can, advertise the fact that we have an app, encourage the download, kind of get the value proposition of why we have it out there and why they should download it, and then of course a staff member to walk them through it. Um, we do have on-bus Wi-Fi, which, I'm sure similar to attractions, it can be spotty at times, but it generally works well. But of course, the same challenges in certain markets where Wi-Fi um, on the bus is not as stable, I
Yeah.
guess, or the data roaming, like Dubai, for instance, is extremely expensive, so it's less common there. But we do see um, with our in-market staff and all the stops, all the touch points we have, we're seeing a nice uptake in it.
Right. Well, one of the things that I know we've seen across the business when we're implementing apps for people is very much a hearts and minds thing, actually. Um, if you want to get it adopted, you've got to start with your own team. It has to be led from the top as well. The guy in charge, or the lady, or the person in charge, has to be the one really driving it, and then letting that flow down to everybody so that everybody understands why it's important that the app is actually, or the digital product is made available to customers, and that customers are then encouraged to use it. Because as you said, unless the customer is told that it's a really useful thing, then they might not think to do it. They just don't perhaps understand the benefit initially. So yeah, hearts and
Absolutely. And to your
mm,
point, I mean, our it's crucial that our general managers who are running our city operations believe, and they know because they've seen it through the data, how much that improves the overall NPS score, of our products
mm,
that they're measured on. So it helps encourage them, their teams who are customer facing, to really, you know, um, make sure they promote the app, encourage customers to download it, and you're exactly right. That's what you have to do.
yeah, great.
And I
Let's do
think
a
I
little
think
quick.
John,
Oh, sorry,
sorry,
please,
sorry,
Claudio. Yeah,
sorry,
carry on.
may I interrupt? I think this is
Mm,
actually one very interesting point. So, like what Alexi was mentioning. So the fact that we need to look at the full end-to-end customer journey, and we need to consider all the different touch points. So, and
mm,
again, it's not just about the app per se, or it's not just about whatever we think customers may be able to experience. It is what, let's say, technically marketers are calling the messy middle. So like the complex non-linear path that customers currently take. And in most of the cases, we're talking about like individual paths, not even like paths anymore. So it's like very personalized in terms of how they do things, how they experience things. Even if they all have a smartphone in their hand. So we're assuming that the way they're using it, it's pretty much the same, but it's not. It may not be for many different reasons. So this is, I think, one of the very relevant topic for everyone, like understanding this complexity and leveraging technology in order to make sure that you can, redefine a bit how you deal with customers, enhancing their experiences, and obviously as a company, getting back something because you can get back feedback, reviews, information. You can enhance repetition. I mean, we know it. I mean, this is obviously something
mm.
that we as operators, we're not doing for free. We're doing to have a better experience, but also get back something to better sell our products. So this is, I think, very, very important.
Yeah. So hearts and minds one thing. The other is preparation, and that's part of that customer journey. Is the preparation of the visitor, the guest, the customer, um, to let them know that they'll be using this type of technology when they travel, rather than springing it on them at the last minute. Because you want them coming with their phone charged up, I guess, don't you? You want them to pre-download it wherever possible. So the earlier that you start the journey for them, the better, isn't it? The marketing, the positioning of it starts very early on. Stephen, do you find something similar? Do you manage things that way too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Claudio is touching on, the messy middle is really where a lot of the exciting things are happening right now. To our point, yes, of course, it helps us as operators to get people using the app. And I think some of the things, it's very telling the things that have come up so far, which are things that are either helping operators in their future sales and marketing opportunities. What is the next thing that we should be promoting to them? Or getting them to the experience so that we limit potential negative review, improve NPS scores. But these seem very kind of operator centric, except for like let's say the point of access, right, which is a check-in, unlock the door, enter the attraction. These things kind of, while they do serve the customer, they're really also serving the operator. So I think that the pieces that are most say useful to consumers are number one, the communication piece, right? So the ability to chat and call at a moment's notice, get just in time updates and information. It's much harder to do that with just a browser, or a web app. You really need, and now people aren't checking their email so much, so having the native app on their phone really gives you a much tighter connection to them. Also, where we deal with people out in the field, not necessarily always having retail spots to find, to understand, where a bus might be or understand where a meeting point might be in a square. Having that, GPS navigation is very important. But, I think that even within that is kind of, okay, let's say that's the pre-tour and the post-tour. But what happens during that middle bit, and how can either personalized technologies or experiential technology kind of enhance the product itself? And I think that's the part that I think there's very little being done right now, but where more and more things are coming into play there. Different audio products and different augmented reality products and things like that. So I think looking at ways to convince consumers, hey, download this app not because I want to market to you after you're done with the product, or maybe even during the product, duration, but that it can actually enhance the on trip experience.
Right, right. Yeah, you mentioned AR. Let's flip to that for a second. During the pandemic, we saw a lot of type of virtual reality stories coming out, and because people couldn't travel, so they were doing other ways of experiencing things. But so we've heard a lot about AR and VR. Stephen, do you think that they're at the places where these technologies can be utilized at their best, or do you think they should be absolutely everywhere? What's your view on AR, VR, perhaps?
Yeah, I think we're still a little early, and I mean, it's controversial. I'm a big fan of these technologies. I've been experimenting with AR and VR in different iterations since about 2011, and we've done some different product integrations, particularly with VR because it becomes kind of an activation point on a tour. You're going to see more and more VR as the devices have gotten cheaper, the quality has improved. Even just the other day, I was in a rural cathedral kind of ruin in the UK, and they had a VR device set up in there where you could see what it was like at various points of the past. I mean, these things are out there. There's a company called Time Looper that's doing kind of VR activations at various attractions around the world. There's a few companies doing that actually. So I think there's a place for it, particularly on the experiential enhancement side. Our experience with it is it can be clunky. It's, if you have to carry the devices to a place, it's, that's a challenge. Customers often have trouble with them. As I said, the quality's improved, but when we were doing it at Stonehenge and a few other places, some customers would find it to be, give them nausea or something. So, I think that we're still a little early on both. AR, I've seen very few, implementations of AR that wasn't gimmicky. Where it's like, yeah, you can hold up your phone and see maybe an overlay or activate something to pop up, but it wasn't something that I see people widely using, except for in a few cases. I think it's become quite interesting for children, using, iPads and smartphones to, maybe make a scavenger hunt that runs alongside the experience. I was doing this in a hotel in Orlando. They had kind of a safari that you could unlock through your smartphone,
Hmm.
and my kids loved that. So there's a lot more we could do, but I think we're just at the beginning of the journey there. And as Claudio mentioned earlier, AI, which I'm sure we'll get to, also has implications on making a lot of that technology more accessible, faster, higher quality, and better, more personalized.
Yeah, great, great. Let's throw open a poll, just a quick one. There's a little poll, and I think, Barbara, if you can throw it up. The first one is just a question for the audience. How often do you personally use your smartphone to empower in-destination experiences. Let's have a quick look at that. If you just want to click on your screen, and we'll just take a quick. Constantly is winning. I can see the numbers rolling here. Constantly is winning. Occasionally is taken over now. So it's a mixed bag. Occasionally is leading the. Rarely is very low. Frequently pretty high, and constantly is pretty high. Those two together. Let's see. I think we got the feel there, Barbara. We can stop that there. Let's end the poll and share the results. There we go. So rarely is 5%. So actually, everybody in the audience is pretty much out there. Occasionally 37, but if you add together, which is cheating, I know, but if you add together frequently and constantly, that's pretty similar, isn't it? We're sitting there at 58%. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, thank you, Barbara. We can close that. Let's talk a little bit about AI then. Let's go forward into perhaps future tech adoption. We hear a lot about AI in various areas. Of course, there in terms of organization of experiences, in terms of, I mean, there's some obvious copywriting and that sort of thing, of course, sits there. How do you guys see this? Alexi, how do you see AI might work in your environment for you? What's your view?
Well, more broadly, I think the real opportunity in AI, in generating growth, more revenue bookings, is bridging the gap between discovery and when the customer is actually ready to transact. I think, we constantly hear of the challenge unique to our sector, that when customers are just starting to dream about where they want to go, research what there is to do in a destination using TikTok and so forth, they're inspired, they have all of these activities in their head, but of course they don't, know the operators. They don't take that with them into the destination, or a couple days before they travel, when they're, about to make the booking, when they're ready to buy. So I do think AI is going to play a role in that moving forward. We're not there yet, of course, but that's where I see the real opportunity going forward.
Right. One of the big areas that's in constant discussion at the moment, of course, is AI and voice and translation work. And for some, that's seen as the holy grail, is that we get to automatic voice translation and realistic voice in other languages, so that multilingual experiences can take place more effectively. Claudio, I mean, there are some barriers here, aren't there? There's some big barriers that we know about, because Jensen from NVIDIA and Elon Musk, all the big titans are talking about the problems at the moment. The investment costs required to be generated, creating hardware that can deliver this is trillions, not billions, it's trillions they're talking about. Claudio, what's your thoughts on this?
No, you're right. I mean, this is actually something that we typically missed during most of the discussions, also in the travel space, about AI. So the fact that it requires a certain level of computational capacity, which is not necessarily something that you can have as you like. So there is definitely a limitation there, especially when you want to deliver something like what you were mentioning. So, for instance, live translation, so a machine translating immediately whatever someone is actually saying in a different language, and maybe with the very same tone, etc., etc. Obviously, I'm not talking about the very basic stuff. I'm talking about something that might be quite relevant for, and this is something that we do a lot now in terms of research and development involved, like for groups, like having radios used to do this type of work, which is not necessarily something that you do with the very same network capabilities that you have by using phones, etc., etc. So this is definitely limitation. That being said, I do think that the speed of development here is quite surprising, and it's indeed something that might be very different, in a year time. Obviously, I'm not sure. I mean, even now, when we're talking about the adoption of AR and VR, I always tend to remember that the internet was invented in 1969 with ARPANET. So, but then we started using it massively like late 90s. So, so we always need to be careful. But that being said, AI is already very interesting, and I think already a technology that operators can leverage very easily. Thinking about ways of leveraging it, definitely there is the conversational element that I was mentioning earlier, but also the capability of making predictions, helping and supporting the travel planning, making sure that you have more efficiency at operational level. So if we think about the capabilities right now that we have as operators, and also on the distribution side, OTAs have in terms of changing dynamically pricing, doing the revenue management with AI is quite amazing, and is already there. So we're not talking about something that requires whatever system behind or whatever capability behind the scene. So it's something that you can definitely uh, implement. Then again, the question is how do you implement it? How you make sure that the implementation follows the real needs, and all the implications. Let's say based on the messy needle we were mentioning earlier. So the fact that you always need to interact with different touch points in different ways. We also have in the experience world, in the travel experiences world, a lot of complexity that other segments of the travel industry do not have. I mean, if you think about hotels and flights, I mean, this is something that can be done much more easily than for us, because of
Mm.
all the operations
The
behind,
commodity products, yeah.
because
Yeah,
exactly. So it's very
yeah,
different. But again, my point is there are certain things that are still like a bit limited, and we need to take that into consideration. Also, quality wise. So another thing that I
yeah.
wanted to mention
That's
is
very
also
key, isn't it?
quality. Yeah,
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 yeah. I think if you're having a conversation, I mean, Samsung and their Galaxy S24, with a multilingual translation and whatever, that's fine when you're having a conversation with a friend or whatever, a bit of a chat, and something comes out a little strange, it doesn't matter, and the dates don't quite work, or whatever, the pronunciation's all wrong, doesn't matter. But when you're paying for a service for arts and culture, for example, you want to get it right, don't you? You can't deliver a product that's half cocked.
absolutely. And this is something that we see every day with our partners, for instance, with regard to what we do with self-guided tours, audio tours, and things like that. So the quality is something that it's definitely needed, especially for certain type of experiences. Sure, it's needed,
Mm,
fundamental for museums, attractions, arts and culture related stuff. So it's something that, and quality wise, again, AI is not delivering exactly what is expected. We're getting there. I'm sure we are.
yeah.
So I'm not very concerned about the capacity of getting there. It's more like about how we use it in the future, how we are going to leverage it ourselves in the right way again.
Mm. We've got a few questions coming in, and some of them are related to, obviously, to what we've been discussing. Stephen, one question that's come in is, do you think, this is to the panel, not to you, Stephen, but I'll ask you, Stephen, do you think
Or,
that the key to
or Oscar.
success in developing the right companion tools lies in a tool that does everything, or is it better to have tools that do specific functionalities, apps that have specific functionalities, rather than the super app, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that my tendency would be to say, obviously, focus and try to do one thing really well. Because if you have one really great, digital experience, then you can build on that. Trying to build a lot of different pieces of functionality, it takes a long time. It's expensive, and it may not do in the field what you want it to do, and you kind of end up playing whack-a-mole with bugs. So I think that generally, focusing is the way to go, and try to decide on what the implementation point you want it to be. What is it going to do? Is it delivering for your guests? Is it delivering for your sales team? Is it delivering for communications and guest support? Is it an experiential component that you really want to make as part of the tour's marketing? You have a lot of options of where to deploy something. Operational challenges that Claudio mentioned, but focus on, even within those, focus on very one specific thing, and try to enable that. And I think if you can do that, and to everybody's point, that's gotten easier now than ever. Apps are much more straightforward to implement. You can use third-party tools. You can use white label. If you want to get into the I don't know, audio tour game, there are partners you can work with, that can help enable that for you, your attraction. I'm thinking of companies like Clio Muse. They make it very easy, cheap, and they have great partnerships for that. So I think if you're going to design your own thing, be very focused, and if you're going to work with a partner, which probably is the most straightforward and fastest way to go to market with something, then there are a lot of options nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, back in the days of many of these big reservation systems that were being built, I remember DER built a system that was hugely complex and never really was the right system. And had they adopted something that was already written and then built from that, would have been better. And I think that's often been the case, isn't it? That's just one example. Certainly, I've experienced it in businesses previously too. Yeah, it's a good point. Alexei, what's your thought on future trends, emerging trends in companion technologies? What do you think will be the biggest impact on the travel industry in the next 5 years? That's one of the questions that has come in. Just for example, before AI came to the front, everybody thought VR was going to be there. That was one of the big ones. We've done that part, but that
Yeah.
was one of the big ones. What's your thinking?
Well, two things. One of those is building on what Stephen just said, which I think is super important, that when you're implementing any sort of app or companion technology, you want to really focus and understand what problem you're trying to solve with it. And as far as the travel industry for our sector goes, and tours and activities, there's huge opportunity to enhance the customer experience. And um, both I like the term messy middle, enhancing, between the booking down to the in-market redemption, doing the tour, um, and then solving if you're looking at your customer feedback, the common problems you do see that this technology can really enable a solution for. So for Big Bus, um, one of the biggest wins we've just had, and we implemented a relatively new technology called Satisfy Labs. They're big in the sports world, and they're just launching into the tourism vertical, where we have in our app live AI feed, so customers can just write a quick question. I can't find the stop. Where is it? Where's the bus? And it addressed one of our biggest challenges, which was stop findability and customers, just not quite being able to navigate it on their own. So I think that's one thing, just an overall ability
Mm.
to enhance our customer experience and satisfaction. And the other side with it is, I think we have a lot of folks traveling in destination that still, are just kind of, self-exploring on their own. And this technology enables us a way to kind of cast a wider net and capture that demand. I was just at a cruise industry conference where I think the number is 30% of cruise passengers when they get to a port don't have any shore excursion book. They're just kind of walking around. They prefer to be independent, a real independent traveler. And so I imagine that percentage is quite high, for the other customers as well. So VR, AR, self-guided tours, I think, is an excellent way to capture these customers and grow the industry.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think this type of technology doesn't replace the need for visitors, guests to experience local people, and that's very much in demand, isn't it? Absolutely. Nothing to do with companion technology is taking away from the concept of meeting local people, being engaged, talking directly to somebody, but it's supplementing and complementing rather than taking away and meeting a new demand, a different demand that's out there. I'm in Rome at the moment, and the place is jam-packed. It's absolutely full in
I
Rome of
just heard that
tourists.
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so full. But people are looking for that personal experience too. So again, none of this conversation is to take away from that. Can I ask another quick question? Throw this out there. It's come from a question that's been coming in the panel I'm seeing in front of me. So the travel industry, it tends to be a cottage industry to a degree. The companies here, you guys, are in slightly bigger organizations, but it is a cottage industry. There are little tiny venues out there, tiny little specialist museums or whatever it might be. And how do they start to get engaged with this? What can they do? Board Falcher, which is the Irish Tourist Board, about 2 years ago, spent millions on digitising Ireland, basically, the Irish tourism sector, in helping small venues, small companies, getting distribution organised, in creating the technology or being part of the technology, digitising and so on, to do that. But that's not happening everywhere. So, Claudia, I mean, just picking that up, do you see this is a major issue that's companies here are
It,
addressing part of this, but
I would say that it's a big opportunity more than an issue. I mean, it is an issue because you definitely have, as we were saying, plenty of very small players, operators, museums, venues, whatsoever, that are not yet there. They're who are not even thinking about those type of things because they just don't know it, or maybe they
mm,
currently feel
mm,
that they don't need it. My point is that although users' behavior is driving the way, is changing things, and will drive change anyhow. So maybe the point here is more around how can we bring knowledge more than anything else to those players. Like, how can we make sure that they can have skills, information, whatever may give them more power to do things or adopt new ways of even new ways of working, new ways of thinking. Um, to your point, I mean, for me, again, even with the industry operators, as it is with any other type of user at the end, customer and user, uh, the point is not about technology itself. So my point is, there is no technology better than better than another, essentially, but they're more or less effective ways to use the technology depending on how it is used, or based on what's the real need or what's the problem you are solving, as Alexei was rightly saying. So this goes exactly, I think, in the very same direction with regard to the industry and the smaller operators. They just need to understand it. They need to know. It's not about just having the technology or
yeah,
having someone pushing them to use that technology,
yeah. And there
because
are
maybe this is
solutions
not
out there
going
for them,
anywhere.
aren't there? that there are solutions out there for them. You know, you
More and
don't have
more,
to
I
create
think.
your own app, as Stephen said. You know, you can actually
Absolutely, absolutely,
pick
absolutely.
up developments from.
And more awareness and more information delivered by different entities. I mean, even what we're doing here is a little thing, you know.
Mm,
Hopefully, helping someone understanding that there is the possibility of doing something, or just information that they may not have heard.
yeah,
And this is, by the way, not really necessarily happening in countries that are not touristically important. This is happening even in countries with a huge volume of tourists already. So, I mean, you were
mm,
mentioning Rome. I mean, it's happening in Rome. It's happening in one of the major touristic city of the world.
yeah,
We're having
yeah.
this issue, absolutely. But again, for me, it's more an
Stephen, do you
upstream.
come across? Have you come across small businesses that are woefully underrepresented in this area that could do much more?
Oh, I mean, there's always more that can be done. I think, virtue of either consulting or through participation in things like Arrival, which I think has done a lot over the last 7 or 8 years to expose smaller operators, attractions, of tours and et cetera, sightseeing in general, to these opportunities, to new technologies. I was just in Berlin last month, and we had the first innovation showcase. And they were showing the latest and greatest, and you had operators of all sizes there, learning about We Go Trip, like an AI based tour guide, right? Really interesting stuff. And so it's not as far away. I encourage people to attend these events. They move that event around now, and more events that are global are incorporating the latest and greatest technologies. So that's where I learn about things, is by traveling around in that way. And then on my personal travels, yeah, I do still see not just tour operators. I mean, even hotels, particularly in Italy with woefully inadequate booking systems. That's not. I don't think we have to solve this long tail. I think there's a lot of time spent on, trying to get everybody to use all the technologies. I mean, if the technologies have been there for res techs and hotels for 20 years and they've been quite great. If you're still encountering stuff from 20 years ago, I think we can just move on and say that, like, yeah, they'll maybe adopt it someday, but I don't know that it's going to change the world. If you book a small boutique hotel in Sardinia, and they're using a very outdated piece of technology, and you're, it just, I don't know how much we really need to push for that, but for the most part, for the things people are experiencing in volume in places like Ireland, like you mentioned, or in Rome, this is where all of these different things become important, because it's a competitive advantage, right? It can be,
Right,
it can
right.
be a quality advantage. And so, that's where I think operators should be thinking about it, is, even if you have a small attraction with small visitation, if you can increase the quality of the experience of the customer, of their ability to find it, to get in, to book, to do something at the attraction. Some of these technologies are relatively cheap now or inexpensive to deploy, and worth that extra. Now you're getting a little more reviews. You have your online review a lot easier and more accessible to guests as they leave. Those reviews will help propel more bookings. And for most operators, I think that's the thing that they are most focused on. And so, I think that's where you start, is really focusing on just get more reviews, get more reviews in more places, and you'll see them adopt more and more once they see that working.
Yeah, Alexia, are you taking the same approach?
Yeah, I agree with Stephen wholeheartedly about the reviews. Particularly my area of the business I look after at Big Bus is very review dependent. So anything that would encourage a customer to leave another positive review can only help, your visibility and capture more demand out there. The other piece of this I think is important is in where we're at today is there's a lot more pressure on operators on the cost side. And with that, we might, are faced with decisions around increasing our price point to the customers. We had a year ago, was it 2 years ago, where customers were much less price sensitive because there was just all that pent up demand. But now price sensitivity is returning. And I do think we don't have to be the cheapest product, and we can, adjust our pricing as necessary, but we have to have the value there for it to really make sense for the customer, and for the customer to be, you know, pleased that they paid that money to take the tour. And, as Stephen said, it's a lot of these tools are relatively inexpensive and just add tremendous value to the experience. So anything about enhancing the tour itself to the entire customer journey, I think is something that, is really important, particularly now.
Great, thank you. Claudia, anything you want to wrap up with? I know time is coming swiftly to the hour. Anything you'd like
No,
to
I think,
throw in?
I mean, I guess taking what Alexi was just saying, I fully agree that for operators, let's say there's plenty of things that they can easily leverage on top of the core experience that they already provide. And yes, to her point about price increases, I mean, cost increases, and therefore the need of rebalancing a bit with pricing. This is definitely something that can be immediately leveraged by most of the operators, at least the ones that have knowledge about it. Yeah, I mean, for me, lots of very interesting points to reflect upon.
Yeah, great, great, really good. Guys, I'd like to, on behalf of the audience, thank the panel very much for being here. I have to say that Alexi and Stephen had to get up very early this morning. Alexi, you're in Minneapolis, right? So you were up at 5 a.m. for joining this. You're not up then, you joined at 5 a.m. And Stephen, you joined at 6 a.m., I think, so in Boston.
Yep.
So really appreciate that. And thank you all our visitors too, who've joined the webinar, who've come from far away. I know we've got some in Australia and some in the States, so we've had both ends of the spectrum, I think. Really appreciate it. I just want to flag very quickly that we have a whole series of webinars here that are probing and examining the opportunities that lie there for the travel industry and technology. We've just done this one, 17th of April, but as you can see on screen, 29th of May, we've got the evolution of group travel. We've got Ulla Hafel from TTC, the Travel Corporation. We've got Travis Pittman from Tour Radar, and another speaker who I can't announce yet, we're just waiting on that, and lots of other, I can't run through all the speakers, but we're then doing the rise of FIT travel, about personalization and independence, and Claudio will be actually the moderator on that one. We've got redefining city marketing and DMO strategies in the age of mobility as a service. We've got unlocking in-destination data, a new frontier for operators, enhancing end-to-end travel experience through technology, and finally, running into January, we've got interactive journeys and elevating visitor experiences. That's all about arts and culture, of course, with smart tech, and some very wonderful speakers coming for that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We've had a couple of other questions that are more Vox related. We'll answer those separately and directly, because this wasn't to be about Vox as such. This is about giving a little bit back to the industry on behalf of all of us. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. There is a recording that has been going on that will be sent to you. It's coming to you through your email, a link to that. And please do, if you see us up there, make sure you comment or like or whatever on LinkedIn, because we're trying to get this series moving around the world. It would be great if you did that. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time, panel. Wishing you all the best, everyone, and have a great year 2024. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.